All right, we're ready to go, Lisa.
All right, so we'll call the meeting to order here at 5:46 on my computer, it says. Lisa, you want to take roll call, please? Can you hear me, everybody?
I gotta unmute her. Now try it, Lisa.
Jane Wyman,
Here.
Bill Huberty,
Here.
Al Morton,
Here.
Kathy Rosler,
Here.
Amy Thompson,
Here.
Scott Kibbe,
Here.
and Aaron Dietrich is absent, correct?
No, I'm here.
He was there.
Was he always
I'm
here?
here.
Yeah, he's here.
He's there.
I thought you said you weren't here the last time. Okay,
No, he came in. He was there.
got it.
Okay. So we need a motion to approve the agenda as presented. There's someone who wants to make a motion.
I'll motion.
Motion by Val, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Katie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So then we're moving on to our approvals of district business and our consent items. Everyone's had a chance to review those. Were there any questions? Not any?
None for me.
If not, is there a motion to approve the consent items?
I can make the motion.
A motion by Kathy. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So then we're moving on to old business and discussing and approving the revisions to the board policies. Darren, can I make a comment on that?
Again, there were the things that we put in the last time. I think all those changes that we discussed in the last one have been put in there. So I think there's nothing new. Everybody went through them. Making through, I think these had to do with, we added the military part of it, correct, Jane?
Yes.
Yep. So we were looking through some of our things in the leaves that we found different between our policies and the IASB policies. Had to deal with National Guard and military leave and those kinds of things. We didn't have those in our policies, so that's what we put in there.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone else who wasn't on the committee? Kathy and Katie and I and Darren had met regarding those. So you've all had a chance to look at it. So were there any questions or anything? If not, then I'd take a motion to approve those as presented.
I'll motion.
Val, motion by Val. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Katie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So then we're moving on to the middle school softball, 7th grade girls track coaching contracts. Are we discussing, yeah, don't we have to have Val bring that off the table?
Yeah.
So I just make a motion for that?
Please.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
motion to discuss those.
Okay.
You're gonna need a second.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second.
Second by Kathy. And the reason why is we had that tabled again was just because we didn't know if we'd have spring
We did,
sports.
yeah, we were, so where we're at with that, and of course, today at 11 o'clock changed, but we haven't had a chance to look at middle school softball. I'll have to meet with Mr. Dunlap to figure out what we have for that. I don't know how that fits in with the governor's announcement today that summer sports could start practice on June 1st and games, I believe, on the 15th. So we may have to do something special with that. However, what I did do was move both the middle school softball and the 7th grade girls track. I moved for contracts for next year into the resignations and contracts part. So I had Tracy reached out to both Erica and Scott And they wanted to do it next year. So I thought before this morning at 11, I thought let's at least get contracts out for next year and be done with it, and wait and see. I'll have to have a discussion with Mr. Dunlap to see where we're at with the middle school girls this summer. But
So we're approving for next year.
that's in the resignations and contracts.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So I
So-
think we have to withdraw. How do we have to get rid of this part?
Far as, because that was approving that before, we just let that die. That motion will die to approve, which came initially from Morgan.
Okay,
Second.
so we've discussed and it's gonna just die now.
We're gonna die there, and then what'll happen is
We'll discuss it under new
Dunlap.
business.
I'll get with Mr. Dunlap, and if we're gonna do, if they're ready to go, if they think they can get a schedule together for the girls softball middle school, then we'll get a contract to Erica for that.
Okay.
I think we were all in agreement. We were just waiting on timing to see what in the world was gonna happen.
Sure. Okay, so then moving on to educational news, we have the return to learn plan.
Okay, so and I sent you some stuff in the update as well. But basically what we have gotten from the state, you have this PowerPoint. And I just want to highlight some of the bigger parts of it. Right now they're looking at 3 models of delivery: the interim, combination, or traditional. And so you'll hear a lot of language around the combination as being hybrid. So they've used those terms interchangeably. The hybrid lets you be in session. It could be in session with some kids and out of session with others. You could be in session for a while, and then if your infection rate or something comes up and you have to go remotely for a while, you go back in and out. We are proposing from an administrative standpoint that we do the combination piece, because I don't think it would be good for us to lock ourselves into online or lock ourselves into person and not have a plan to be able to deal, or have the flexibility to be able to deal with the situation as it unfolds next fall. So there are lots of pieces of that. You know, we normally have to submit if we have 10% of our students are out sick. Okay, if you get to 20, a lot of times, we very seldom get there, but once in a while we get there where you'd have to actually close school. And so the concern is, would you get to that point next year? And if you do, how long would you have to stay out? And then how would you have a continuous, a combination plan that would allow you to go in and out of both in-person and remote to be able to offer a continuum of learning for the whole year? It's important to note that everything next year is required. So there is no voluntary participation next year. It's all required. And so right now we're looking at that plan that gives us the combination. The issue that we face, that's probably one of the bigger issues, is just the structure of what school could look like if we're in session. What will the social distancing rules, if any, what will that look like? What will any other recommendations from the Iowa Department of Public Health look like for bringing everybody back into the building? Right now, they're telling us to keep that separate, but that's pretty hard to do. And they're also saying they may not have final guidance on that till August. Well, if we wait till August to figure all that out, it's going to be a problem. So we're already starting to meet. I sent out invitations yesterday. These are the areas of the plan that has to be submitted to the state. You can see leaders, all those areas, okay? Goes through what I just talked about as far as modes of delivery. These are the areas. I can tell you that we sent out, we're bringing in, we'll have a teacher group working on infrastructure, on academic content standards and learning requirements, social, emotional, behavioral health, and equity. We will have teacher facilitators for each of those groups. We are looking at bringing them in here in 2 weeks to go through. There is actually guidance the state has given us with an outline of check boxes and things to discuss. And we'll have each one of those teams come in for a day, spread them out so we follow our social distancing guidelines, but have them really tear into those documents and start being able to type into those, what are the things that we already have in place? What do we need to get in place? What do we need to talk about? And try to get a handle on that for all of those groups. We have one coming in, just one group a day, so we keep everybody spread out. And then the plan, the return to learn plan is due in CASA July 1st. It will be, from at least all accounts, it has not been posted, at least I didn't check today, it wasn't yesterday. It will be somewhat simple and lots of check boxes, but the actual digging into all of this to actually make it happen in August is going to be pretty complex work. So there'll be more in this area than will be what we submit to the state. I will tell you that we have met, we meet again tomorrow. We've had initial meetings with health and safety with myself, Tom Griffin, Sherry Hinners, our nurse, and Sarah Stroman, public health, to start looking at initial things around health and safety, because that's going to be a lot of what happens if we're back in person in the fall. And how do we monitor that? In the update that I sent you, I actually linked you the notes that we had taken in that meeting. We meet again tomorrow and we'll add to those notes. But that group, and then we will be reaching out to the other county schools to see if they want to work collaboratively with public health to do these parts of our plans together. I can tell you a couple of the considerations that were made in the health and safety were the use of masks, number one. We talked about safety guidelines around social distancing. Things like if we are to stay 6 feet apart, how do we run a classroom? How do we run a lunchroom? How do we run hallways? There are a lot of things. We don't know what that's going to look like, which makes it a little shaky right now. But we also have talked about things like we will be ordering Seek and scans, which will kids will walk in. We'll have to space them out, have them walk in. They face the tablet, and it will give us a green, yellow, or red as far as their temperature. Trying to figure out, can you imagine taking the temperature of every kid walking in the building and every adult? We would, about the time we'd get done, we'd have to start doing it for, we'd be past lunch. So we're trying to figure out some technology things that will help us screen kids and adults to let us know if we need to look at temperature. We've also ordered electrostatic disinfectant machines, which use a tablet. And then actually it's kind of like a fogger, so to speak, but the electrostatic makes it stick to surfaces. And then you can go in and disinfect rooms or equipment or whatever. Tom has already got those on order. We will have 3 for our district, 2 at the middle school, high school, one of which can also be used to do buses and vehicles. Because remember, we're going to have to think about all of that as well. And then 1 at West. Also, then we are having, Gene Heislop is meeting with us on this as well, so that we are having a joint plan with the Catholic school, so it's all the same. So they're looking at the Seek and Scan, and they are also going to get a electrostatic disinfectant machine, so we're all the same on the plan. And then we've got groups. Yeah, let's say we have teacher leaders coming in. We start those groups. We'll turn the plan in by July 1st to the state, and then I can see us. This will be a lot of stuff. We will keep you up to date on what we're finding with each of the groups, and we will post the notes and stuff to make sure everybody's up to speed on what's going on. Questions on the return to learn plan? And I sent you in your update, you have the website, state has a website. You have this PowerPoint and some other guidance that came from the state.
Thank you for the communication, and thank you for your efforts. I know this is a lot of extra at the end of a year. It's been just
Yeah, I'll just caution you on the
Unprecedented.
summer sports. And we have a DE meeting tomorrow afternoon with superintendents. In the guidance I received from the state today, does not cover transportation. So we're going to have a short window. There are a lot of holes in the guidance, which is to be expected, but but we shouldn't be transporting until June 15th anyway for any contest. So we've got a little time, but there'll be a lot of things that have to change to be able to make all this work.
When will that electrostatic cleaner be in? Do you know? He
Probably
said it's-
August. If you can
Don't
imagine,
have-
they're in high demand right now.
Yeah.
I'm sure. It's
You
like
think?
impossible to get.
Tom Sweet talked, no, we're on the first order. The first shipment that comes in, we get 4 of them.
That's awesome. So as far as transportation, it may be that they have to transport themselves to games just to
That has
be.
been discussed in some of the things that have been recommended, but we haven't seen any guidance on that at all. The only guidance I saw on the summer sports that deals with this return to learn plan is that for practices, they can't use dugouts. The parents have to drop them off and stay in their cars, bring their own water bottles, own equipment. It's going to be a learning curve. But we'll, like I said, we found out today at 11. And again, not complaining. I'm just telling you, when you find out, we find out. There was no advance notice to us because we're the school administration. It was the first we'd heard of it was the press conference. So
Aaron, would these athletes have to sign a waiver?
there's some discussion around that, although participation has to be voluntary. Well, of course, I mean, it would be voluntary anyway, but yes, I have a lot of questions, as will a lot of superintendents tomorrow at the DE webinar.
Well, we don't want somebody to come back and sue us.
Right. And we
because
have
the child
that,
happened to get sick.
we have that issue as we look at graduation and other things that we're working on a plan to figure out. You have to take those things, and everything needs to be done in conjunction with the public health department.
Okay.
Well, and you'll have to think about those kids that can't get somewhere on their own or with the help of a family member, and the ones that can't afford equipment on their own too.
And that's part of what, in general, the return to learn plan, because we're required, there are no equity waivers. So you have to meet the needs of kids with IEPs, of ELL students, socioeconomic, any emotional, behavioral needs. We have to figure out a way to do that. In the spring, it was kind of do the best you can do because it came upon so quick. We really didn't have a lot of time. But because we're required, you can't require and then have equity issues. So that's part of why there's an equity team, and part of the plan that deals with all of those issues to make sure they're considered and how they look.
What about the special needs students that might be more susceptible to COVID-19 because of their situation?
So
Will they come back to school?
Right. So those kids will, their IEP drives that. I know Erica's out there and she'll either shake her head, I'm right or I'm wrong. Their IEPs and their health plan drive that. But we're going to have discussions with all of those kids, or I shouldn't say kids, with the families and the IEP teams. What's the best course of action? We have some kids that I think their parents will be concerned, and we would be concerned about if infection rates are high, would they be in school? We'll have to do the same thing. We may have staff that way as well.
Sure.
Right. If you have underlying conditions, then and infection rates are there, we're going to have to discuss that as part. You will remember or not, part of what we dealt with in some of the, I think it was the second emergency policy we put in place was from Ehlers Coolers that dealt with all of the emergency leave and all those things based around COVID. So we have some things in place that we can communicate, but most of that didn't discuss about students.
Okay.
I will tell you that we have been at least discussing administratively, how do you set up a continuum of a learning environment, which if you take student A is out for a week or week and a half, or in what we've heard now, 14 days, right? Comes back to school, but student B then goes out. And how do you then keep everybody moving along, right? When some could be in, some could be out, we could all, I don't think it will be as clean as we're all here or we're all not here. There's going to be a lot of flexibility have to be built in the system for kids who are sick or because in general, let's say that a family had somebody who tested positive for COVID-19 in the fall, then if rules don't change, then everybody who's had contact with them, right, would have to self-quarantine for 14 days. So how would you then put together them being able to participate, right, while they're in quarantine? Because otherwise you'd be going back to where you started constantly. And you never really would get a full year's worth of education. So this is going to be very complex.
Sounds like a nightmare.
Well, I would tell you it's not going to be the funnest year any of us have ever had. That's
I bet not.
going to be very challenging.
Very challenging.
Okay, any other questions on that?
Nope.
Okay,
Okay. Then we'll move on to new business and discuss and approve the resignations and contracts. So first we'll look at resignations, and you can see that on Darren's computer screen. And so I will need a motion to approve those resignations, please, or to accept those resignations.
I'll move.
Motion by Bill. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Aaron. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries, and we want to thank everyone for their time here, and then we've appreciated their efforts. So now we're moving on to contracts.
oh, sorry, I went too early there.
That's all right. We'll pull that up and look at those.
And you will see in here that I've got Erica and Scott both in for those contracts for the next school year. And you will also see that we have a high school Spanish teacher for 3-4 that we got, that Tracy worked with the Department of Education in their teacher exchange program coming from Spain. So that program is recognized by the DE, and they handle all of the visa stuff. So I think we're still getting everything in place, but right now everything's pointed towards we have that filled.
That's a relief.
Yeah. All right, so there are any other questions about that? Do we have to approve any intra-school transfers? Did we do that for our elementary position last time? I can't remember.
Transfers, not necessarily, you wouldn't have to approve because they're administratively, we can transfer within.
Okay,
It's whether or not
perfect.
we're issuing a different, all of our teacher
Perfect.
contracts say teacher. So it's just a matter of where you're teaching.
Okay, sounds good. So is there a motion to approve these contracts as presented, please?
I'll make a motion.
Go
Motion
ahead,
by
Katie.
Katie, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Kathy, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And moving on, Darren, to looking at the board policies. This is just first review, so you probably had a chance to look at those.
So a lot of what changed in these are first reads, and you'll see where we looked at some things and then we made markings exactly what we changed. A lot of this has to do with the federal clearinghouse now around drivers, bus drivers. And so there were some language in the ISB policies that included reporting, to the, so if you look here, we looked at their policies on that one. We looked at the policies that had included the clearinghouse regulations. Now, they've been waived for a while because they were just trying to get it launched when all of the COVID stuff happened. But everything we have indication says they're still coming around. So we wanted to make sure we had those in the board policy. But that was the biggest changes dealt with, where ISB talked about the clearinghouse, as you can see here. If we didn't have it in our policies, we needed to add it. But you can review those and get questions to me before the next meeting. Any questions for me on those now?
All right, we're moving on to this. Yeah, I
Yep.
don't think so, but moving on to the student fee schedule, please.
All right, so we had a discussion. Oh, I'm sure that would come down this way. Hang on. What do you guys see? Do you see the fees or you see something else?
No, we see the fees.
Schedule.
sideways.
Okay, so we looked at fees. The thinking on at least the recommendation from the administrative team is probably wasn't the year to raise fees, right, on students and families. We did block out meals because we haven't had any of the information come down from the USDA. And we're kind of trying to monitor commodity prices. If you remember, we overspent last year, and we're trying to kind of regulate to make sure we don't overspend this year. And so those sometimes are a little harder to figure out till we get into June. But we did want you to look at the other ones, and we're not recommending any changes for this coming school year.
So we'll vote to approve this then as presented now, and then we'll,
And then when we get
Later.
all of the information in on from the USDA and everything else on the food prices, because they do an audit of your lunch prices, tell you what you need to do, and then we look at our commodity prices. We'll be able to do just a presentation on hot lunch and breakfast, and then approve those.
so that'll probably be at the July board meeting then.
It's possible we could have it in June because we're the third week, but we'll see. But certainly we want to do
Okay.
by July because we'll be starting to get online registration stuff going.
Right. Okay. So is there a motion to approve the fee schedule as presented, please?
All motion.
A motion by Val. Is there a second?
I'll
I'll
second it.
second it.
Couple people said it. I think Bill, you said,
I'll second it.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, then we'll approve that fee schedule. And then next, Darren,
Hang on. Now we're up to Iowa Lake. So this is another one of my, remember this one in your first year. So this is the sharing agreement from Iowa Lakes for this school year, which somehow I didn't get approved. So if you'd like to change something, it doesn't matter because the year's already over. But we thought we'd at least go through and show you it and get it approved. I will make sure you get next year's when we get it this summer.
I thought we approved that.
Yeah, it's about the same as it's been, but we thought we'd better get it on there because we hadn't done it. I said, when I say
All right.
we, I say me, it means me.
All
We
right,
can share the blame.
so is there a motion to approve that agreement, please?
I'll
I'll
make
make the
motion to that.
motion.
Okay, everybody. I think I heard Aaron and then second by Scott.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That agreement is approved officially.
Somebody must be in here messing around with our document.
Oh,
Got stuff all over the place. I don't know where it came from. All right, so the next thing that we have on there is we had met last week. What happened? I lost my link. There it is. We met last week and we looked at summer projects. So in the scope of the way things run now, part of the reason some of these are on there, we were contemplating that if we didn't have a baseball and softball season, right, and there were projects that were going to be done on the softball and baseball diamonds, then this would probably be the year to at least talk about it, right? Because if you weren't going to have a season. Well, that changed at 11 o'clock this morning. So we do have some things in there. That's not even the right one. Let me get to the newer one.
So small, I can't even read it.
How's that one look?
Much
Oh,
better.
Much better.
Okay, so just to look at it, we have not been able to get, if we would do something with the bleachers at baseball and softball, there's some cement work that has to be done. We haven't been able, he was supposed to get it to us today. We didn't get it. And we're still trying to get a bid from the company on the fencing around softball and baseball. But you can see some of the costs of the projects. The north and west side of the west sidewalk, we did the other side, the other two sides, or I should say the east side last year. And then it was projected to finish up the west and north this year. We talked about the west cameras, the fact that the system really doesn't work. So we needed to get something done with the west cameras. We talked about that at one of the prior meetings, so that's going to happen. The LED lights in the middle school gym, those are the ones we talked in committee. So the lights go out in the middle school gym. They're fluorescent with ballast. By the time you replace the ballast and everything else, it's about the price of an LED light. So I had Tom go ahead. He's got the lights in hand. They will, through the summer, get the lights switched out to LED, which will give us better light, but also and the cost of that was $4,800 for the lights. Because he's a certified electrician, he can put them in himself. So we don't have an installation charge on that. I would guess it wouldn't take us long to make up $4,800 in energy savings using LED lights.
Mid-American just put a rebate. We could probably get most of that back.
And he keeps an eye on those. The best thing about it was everything fits up into what we currently have. So we're not changing out, the actual boxes in the ceiling and everything else. Everything just, they take their lift up, they go in and switch them out. It didn't make any sense to keep putting ballast in. And at a certain point, just well change them out to get the money back anyway. So we kind of reached the tipping point where it's time to just switch them out. The bleachers have been discussed. They were discussed last year. I think they were discussed before I got here. Right now, it would appear, and again, this isn't the cement work. The bid we have on the bleachers for the baseball diamond is $58,800. The bleachers for the softball diamond are $84,000. Don't ask me why it's completely different, but it has the bleachers we have on the baseball are kind of one section up higher, where the section in the softball, I think, wraps around home plate a little bit. We do have schematics of those, what they're proposing, if you'd like me to send those to you. But I don't have the cement work bid in yet. Tom every year has been going in to West on that, the north hallway and converting lights. The two rooms that are up this year are insured. It appears it's going to cost us about $6,000 to go in, take out all the stuff, put in the new LED lights and everything, new grid and everything. Makes a big difference. We have talked about the electric boxes at the athletic complex. I wasn't here for apparently a fire on one of the baseball lights that last year or the year before, but we have older infrastructure on the electric, so you can't really do anything down there until you look at upgrading your service delivery panels. We just got this bid in today from KMW. It would cost you about that to try and get all of that electrical service at the panels up to grade. But then there have been discussions about softball and baseball lights, but you have to run electricity to those from the panels. Okay, so electrical upgrades for lighting and softball are there. The lighting for softball through Musco, that was the bid, was $90,000. Electrical lighting upgrade, again, that's to get the electricity there from the new panels, is $22,000, and the lighting of the actual baseball lights that come in and install is about $186. I still do not have bids on fencing and on either diamond. We do know that we were borrowing the scoreboard control for baseball from Spencer. That will not be an option this year. They notified Tom. He's working with the company to get us a control that will work for the current scoreboard. It's my understanding in talking with Tom that we're still probably 2 years out from the next generation. So it you know, you could go up one, but if you're going to go within a year or so and they're going to come out with a new scoreboard, putting a new one in now, probably if we could get by another season or so, probably would be more advantageous. And then we had some lights. We're going to get in the LED lights in the bus bay. Those are things that we have talked about. Okay, and I think I don't know that anything on here other than maybe the cameras, and we've talked about that, but have been previous discussions about, are we going to do something with baseball lights? Are we going to do something with the electrical service? We went out and make sure we tried to get bids on those things so you would see what the cost is. And again, the thinking was around the fact that if we didn't have seasons, what if anything would you do on the baseball and softball complexes because you don't have seasons? Right now, we know we're going to have at least a shortened season starting on June 15th. So whatever you did would have to probably, you know, at this point, would have to be done after the season ended and, you know, in the fall and in the spring before it started. That total is $556,136. The only thing, some of the things we have going, like the lights and the cameras, so everything else is still up there, but I wanted to give you an update on some of those projects. We also then did sit down and went through some projections. So I'm starting to try to get the information together so you can see across years what's there. I'm not going to tell you we're 100% there, but we're a lot closer than we were. And so you can see we're estimating right now the carryover in Pebble, and that's both board approved and voter approved. Looks like it's going to be the 758-ish. Again, we haven't closed the school year out, but that's our estimate. The carryover and save right now looks to be about $1.5 million. We're estimating Pebble to be 693, and I'll show you how I come up with that. And we're estimating save to be at 526. So if you add the carry in, you're looking at a total of $3,526,000. We started then looking at, you can see what our note payments are. Because again, before we start doing projects, we have to know what's already, you know, what's already spoken for. And I started laying those out. So you can actually see, in this case, like the Geo capital note for Pebble is paid off in FY21. So it's great. I mean, you can see when a note drops off. Okay.
Yeah.
Same way with the bus leases. We have one more lease payment on the 2017 bus. We then just did the 2 bus leases down here that are 3-year leases, and you can see how they run out for 3 years. Those are the things that are spoken for. And then we started trying to get some costs on copier lease. We also then started looking at Chromebooks. So what you're doing with Chromebooks is we're trying to get everybody where they need to be and then rotate through. And the rotation through is 1, 5, and 9. So when you get out into the outer years, when we get caught up, because you haven't bought any for a couple of years, you start to see this pretty stable cost. Because, and again, it could go up if Chromebooks go up. But if we figure, I figured 3%, and maybe it'll go up more than 3%. But you start saying that's what it's going to, we're projecting it will cost to replace grades 1, 5, and 9 every year. And then the kid in first grade keeps that all the way through elementary, right? It runs its lifespan. They get one in 5th grade, run it through middle school. They get one in high school, they run it through high school. And then you're always, you're rotating a certain percentage, your stock runs its life and goes out. and we go in, but it's a little hefty up front to try and get us to the point where everybody would be where they need to be able to just to replace 1, 5, and 9. The kids then keep those as they stay in that level. The teacher computer teacher computer lease, you can see, we talked about that at the last board meeting. I have that in there. The infrastructure upgrade is here. Remember, we talked about that 98,544 is the total cost. That does not include the 70% E-rate rebate we'll get back. But I wanted you to see that. And then we started trying to budget around where we would be with certain things so that we come up with a total in the 3 categories. And then we can look at what do we have total available, and that would be remaining. Now, whatever you don't spend in a year, then we can add back up into the carryover, and then it would flow through to see what you have there. In order to come up with those numbers, Lisa reached out to our financial advisors. I'm going to try to pull up his actual spreadsheet. Can you see the spreadsheet, or do you see something else?
Spreadsheet.
A spreadsheet.
The one with Piper Sandler on it?
Not that one. That's the 5
No.
to 10 required.
Okay, hang on. I got to get you out of one and back to it.
Darren, are the upgrades in the auditorium and the high school gym included, or is that paid for out of last year's? Or?
When you talk about upgrades, what are you talking about?
Well, aren't we upgrading the sound system in both auditorium?
All that is the gaming grant.
Oh, okay, okay.
So that's not coming out of Pebble or Save. It's all the gaming grant.
Okay.
It comes out of those funds, but it's not really, you know what I'm saying? It's like a flow through.
Right.
Can you refresh me about the SAVE?
So
The money
Save
from
is your
Save.
sales tax.
So we
So
can
now-
do all of it. We can do any upgrades either with Pebble or SAVE?
Right. Now, what we're
Okay.
trying, Lisa and I we worked hard this afternoon. We're trying to get to a pattern where we take certain things out of certain places so we can predict it across time.
Sure, yeah.
It's not something that we've done in the past, but she's working hard to help me get that done.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So hopefully what you're seeing allows you to start seeing kind of how it flows out over time. Transportation
You bet.
Committee, you will remember that we kind of floated buses out as well. So I haven't added those in yet, but we looked at 12,000 miles a year on buses. And then once they got to, 100,000 miles, you'd rotate them out of the fleet. And then how many years out is that? So we're trying to get to the point where you have a more accurate accounting on there. You should be able to see, I think you can see this spreadsheet now that I'm scrolling through.
Not
So-
yet.
I don't
So-
see it.
We see you.
You see me? Oh, maybe if I hit share, we'll get there. How's that?
That's very good.
Well, it says
Does it
Darren,
say, you see
Yeah,
Piper,
we have,
There
There we go.
you see Piper Sandler, right?
yep, that's it.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
I need new glasses.
This sheet, Lisa worked with our financial advisor, and if you read across the top, you can start to see, they do break it out by revenues, by voted Pebble, board approved Pebble. Remember, those will be somewhat steady, and usually they look at, a 2% or so increase in property value, and that's how they kind of estimate out. They have some other things in here, but then they also have the sales tax estimated collection, right? Now, if here, hang on. You can see up in this box, we conservatively said, what if over the next period, and it's in this yellow box down the side, we have a 30% reduction in sales tax revenue. What I have heard is 10 to 15, but who knows? So we put in, I can put any number one in there, but it's 30, and you can see, if you look at the payment that we received in August of 20, because remember, it's in arrears. We had 8 good months of sales tax collection. It was actually increasing. You can see the normal pattern was around 61,000, right? But then when we get to the July collection, it drops to 40 because they start figuring in the 30% reduction. Okay, so we're trying to account for what we might receive in reduced funding through sales tax revenue. Okay, so I got all of this from the sheet that they worked on. You can see their assumptions, 2%, an inflation rate of 2.25. And so what I did then was I took, hang on, I'm swinging back. Okay, I took this sheet then, right, and I went in and over on the left, can you see my spreadsheet that says 5 to 10 year required?
Yes.
Yes.
So you can see that I'm taking the October payment for Pebble, the April payment for Pebble. Okay, that's voter approved. Here's the board that comes right off of his spreadsheet. Okay, there's my totals, which means we're estimating that in Pebble this year through FY21. Okay, then I take the monthly breakdown off of his estimator, right? And I come up with this total, which gives me these numbers, right? So you see how I come up with my numbers?
Mm-hmm.
Then I take those numbers, right, and I plug them in right up here. So if I look at estimated Pebble, and in this chart it says 693, 654, and I go back, I see 693, 654 for Pebble. Okay, now what we're working on is the fact that we would break it out by voter approved and board approved, but it's going to take me a little bit, and Lisa helping me to get that far. But at least at this point now, we're showing that's what we believe the estimated revenue will be in 2021, FY21. We believe, based on Piper Sandler, that we're looking at this. We have these two figures we believe are at least an estimate of our carryover, which leaves us with that. Okay. Anything, so then if you look at this big year, right, all of these, and we're saying that when you add up all these, we look at somewhere around 1,249,000. We have 3.5 available, leaves you 2.27. Okay, so when you start looking at anything in summer, or you start looking at these categories of things that we've been working on, right? How much does it cost if we do these? How much of it, you know, there's a whole bunch of things that have been brought up with either things that Tom knows are coming, or that when Mr. Dunlap met with coaches last year might be things they talked about, and we start putting prices into them, then we know from this how much money do we have, and if we add expenses in, we can calculate what's the remaining, and we can carry over. The other thing that we can do then is start going down by what projects are we going to do what years. So if a project, right, is a high priority, it might have to be done in a sooner year. If it's a low priority, we may move it to a later year, but then we can start looking back at this, where I can add the projects that we want to do into the fiscal years that we want to do them, and then you'll have a better reading of what's coming in, what's going out, when are projects being done over the 10-year span. Does that make sense to everybody?
This is
Very
awesome.
nice.
We've never seen anything like this. This is
There's
great.
a lot of work, so I have to
It's a
thank
nice
Lisa.
spreadsheet.
Lots of work, so I'm thanking Lisa for helping me, because this is,
Thank you.
but if we can get this put together, it helps us manage our budget.
Exactly. And
Now,
you've been
what-
wanting that.
What I would tell you though is, and I know the guys are listening out there, we got to remember that there are two sides to our coin, right? There's the general fund and categorical money on one side, and then there's the Pebble and Save on the other side. Okay, I can't use a penny of Save or Pebble for people. It's all infrastructure, right? It's all stuff, whether it's technology or buses or buildings or upgrades, it's all buildings and grounds maintenance kind of stuff. Okay, that's how you, if you look up here, that's how you bond it against and get several of your building projects done. Okay, so at the same time, we can spend money on this side. We have to look at what our general fund is to see what that looks like on that side. I would tell you though, keeping your buildings and all of these things that kind of, to put the one-to-one initiative, all those things, does help draw open enrollment. And open enrollment's part of our what we're looking at for certified enrollment. And you've we've done a good job. That's been a plus. You know, we were like, what, 100 in, 20 out or something like that. So we've had a good, you know, it's been to our advantage. Other districts might have it'd be flipped over. They'd have more kids going out than coming in. We've been to the good on that. So that helps us with our certified enrollment and our funding, but we have to look at how we go over a period of years, right? To have projects make sense, that they go in the right order, right? So we're, you know, if you remember the discussion we had over baseball, I listened to last spring, well, we should do the fences, but the wiring's bad, but the lights are bad. Well, we've got to do it in a way in which you take first thing first, then second thing, then third thing. Because if you start doing it out of order, then you're tearing up what you already did to fix the next thing. So
Darren, I have a quick question on that. If you're finished. So that sidewalk on West Elementary versus sidewalk on high school.
Yep.
I know we have a sidewalk on West Elementary and that, yes, it probably needs to be upgraded or replaced, but I still really think that we need one on the east side of the high school for safety.
yes, well, and listen, I'm not telling you these are the projects we're doing. I'm
Okay.
telling you I got prices for the projects that we've talked about.
So when
We
do we
still
vote
have-
on those for this year?
We still have to make a decision on what we're going to do.
When do we vote on those?
What was that, Jane?
When do we vote on those for this year? Because
Well,
don't we need
part
to?
of our problem has been waiting to see where it is, and part of our problem's been getting prices. So I just got prices in. So
Okay.
I don't know if you're ready to vote on the summer projects or we need to do that in a different time. But I wanted to get the prices in so you could see what they were.
If we wait, will there be an issue getting them done during the summer?
Oh, to some degree. Part of the thing was, if you look at, you know, if we say, are we doing the sidewalk at West? Are we doing the West? The big money in this bunch, right, deals with softball and baseball fields.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where the chunk of money is. And part of the reason we wanted to get it out there too is because we weren't sure whether we were going to have a season or not. And if this was going to be the year that we didn't have a season, then that, I think, warrants the conversation. If you're going to spend the money, would you do it this year because you didn't have a season? You got all summer to do it. Because otherwise what you're running into is you're going to have some springtime and some fall time to get it done, and we may have to phase it in over time. But
So it
you know,
looks as if we have enough money to pay for all of these this year.
you would. The only thing I would tell you is you guys are going to have to sit and decide, right? This remaining, this $2 million does not include the $500,000 in summer projects. And the fencing I'm assuming the fencing won't be cheap either. I don't know that if you want to do those or not do those, but I wanted to make sure you saw the prices. The issue for you is going to be looking at this and saying, because if you look at some of these years, Jane, when we're still paying bond issues, if we have no carryover, you start dipping down into 500,000, not 2 million. So do you want to do things over time? Do we want to do some of the projects? I guess my thinking, and you guys can chime in, I'd like to meet with facilities again on Tuesday if we could, just to look this list over. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That sounds good, Darren.
But we're trying to get it to the point. It's hard for you guys, or hard for me, till I start getting some of this filled out, to be able to understand the impact of doing any project.
Can we get on grounds now to look at some of this stuff, without, sometimes you kind of forget what kind of shape things are in unless you look at them. Can we do that on Tuesday, or can we drive it out?
Absolutely. Tom will be there.
Okay.
And if
How
we
about,
wait, do we have to worry about price increase? Like cement and stuff?
Well, most of what I have, all of what I have now is pretty relative. Usually, I don't know, maybe Aaron can help. Usually you look at 3% increase over years if expenses. Does that hold up for construction, Aaron?
Concrete's gonna go up if you wait till next year, but I'm trying to think. It went up a decent amount this year compared to last year.
So, I mean, all those factors go in, but I'm trying to get us to a place where when we look at this, all of these kinds of things are in there, right? We decided that we needed to do, I don't know, pick one. You know, we needed to look at bleachers, here's where they go. We need to look, Tom and I have had talking about at what point do you look at parking lots or the bus barn or the, you know, paving of that. And again, you're gonna have to make things, but some of these things, you know, we're gonna have to look at some point at the west shingled roof. Because being shingle, we have ice dam issues, those are going to be on there. But that's where, if I get prices, then we start looking at what year could we do them in, and then we can start looking back over here at another, right, where I put in the optional products for each year that shows you then what would you have if you spent that money, and then what carryover would go back in here for the following year.
I kind of like the idea of Darren going down there and looking at it. I'm kind of with Scott on that one, I think.
I will set it up with Tom to be here for the meeting, and we can go look at whatever you want to look at.
Do you have the amount that we could save on paying those 2 notes off early?
Yeah, I think I said that. Lisa, do you remember off the top of your head what it was?
I'm looking at my phone and I can't get it up here.
Oh,
so.
gotcha.
What was the question?
He's asking if we paid a note off. It was pretty negligible. I mean, it wasn't.
One wasn't very much, but the other one I think was 14,000 in savings.
Yes, but you also needed to have a resolution.
Yeah, we could get there, but we have to do a resolution in the board hearing. But I think you're right. I think one was about 14, but the other was negligible. And I can get that out to everybody.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So that what he's talking about is the question that come up on when you go up here and you look at a couple of these loans, right? So if I look at this 165, or this one where we have 2 years of payment, this is the one I believe, Scott, isn't it? The sales tax loan that you would save the 14?
Yeah.
Where if you paid the note off using some of your carryover, you could save interest money, right? Because you're carrying that. This comes off our sheet. This is the amount we would pay every year to pay down that note until we get to the 2024, and it's paid off and it drops off. That's also why you see, the numbers here. When things start to drop off, then of course you have more money to spend coming out of here. These are things that have to come off the top.
So we don't need to approve anything this evening then?
Let me is it acceptable for everybody for us to pull the facilities committee together, do the whole thing on Tuesday morning, and then make a recommendation to the full board?
Yes. But I'd like to, before the next board meeting, I mean, if we have to have a special so we can get projects going.
The way things are going right now, guys, who knows? We may have to have a couple special meetings because things change so fast right now that who knows?
Okay.
So it's not out of the question that we may have to have a special meeting because we find out we've got to do this, or we find out this or that, and then it's something that either I need to inform everybody on, or you vote on, or whatever. But there's several issues right now on the plate that we probably are going to have to get together more than once a month to get it figured out.
Okay.
What time, Darren, next Tuesday then for the meeting?
What? Aaron likes 6, but that means I got to get up really early.
Yeah, I tell you what, I'm good with that. It doesn't matter to me, so I can do it.
Probably if we're going to tour, we probably better get started earlier than later, though. Correct?
Yeah. Either that, or if everything's open, I mean, we could probably get out there ourselves and look.
Well, Tom and I, I'll set it and send out an invite. Let's set it for 6 o'clock on Tuesday, and then I'll have Tom be ready to do the whole thing with us.
Are you going to look at the roof and that kind of thing too?
Yep. We can run over there and look. Again, the roof is not something the roof is not something that needs to be done today, but I don't, if you look at a 10-year thing, Aaron, you can chime in. On 10 years, I think probably before the 10 years are up, we would have to be looking at doing something. Would you agree or not?
With West, I don't think you'd get 10 years.
Yeah. So that was kind of Tom's concern. So where do you plug that one in? And then we got to start getting bids and all that. But if you see what we're trying to do, right?
Yeah, it's great.
We'll get costs on everything, and then we'll have to adjust. Depending on the year, we may have to figure what are we going to add to it if we're going to do it 3 years from now to get close. But at least it's looking at trying to fill out what we're trying to do with everything, right? Is fill out a 10-year plan. Doesn't mean that
Awesome.
something happens, you got to come back and adjust, but at least you're looking more than 1 year in advance.
Okay,
Great job. Great job.
nice spreadsheet.
Really good.
Oh, you
All right.
guys kill me. Lisa, do you have the bids?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I was reading. We'll do the plow truck first.
Okay, can you hear Lisa?
Yes.
So we're doing the plow truck first. Remember, we took bids, posted it in the paper for the plow truck, and then I think it's bus 3, isn't it? The one we can't
2005, that's what I.
5, the one we can't drive because it smells like gas. So
Oh, jeez.
Okay,
Those
so the
buses
first
are a
one for the
problem.
plow truck is for $906.
I
Can you
didn't
repeat
hear
that,
that,
please?
Lisa.
what was the first one, Lisa? 9?
$126 from Ed Noonan. $650, Robert Weisbrod.
And this is just for the truck, not the
No, the
plow?
truck and the blade, I believe, correct?
Yeah,
The whole thing. I don't know that you can get it out of here in pieces. I don't know that you can get it out of here at all. You may have to tow her out. It doesn't have reverse.
Oh, that's an issue.
titles, 601. And this is the final one. Daryl Titus for 800. So Noonan,
What was that, 9?
26.
926 is the highest bid.
Well, gee.
So is there a motion to accept the 926?
What'd
Yeah,
she
let's do
say?
them separately, Lisa.
Okay,
So on the plow truck, do we have a motion?
Is there a motion to accept the 926 bid for the plow, truck, and blade?
I'll move.
Motion by Bill. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Katie. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
okay, and the
And then-
bus,
Bus 5.
Yep, the
Vander
bus.
Haig's offered $500.
I'm sorry, who?
Vander Haig,
Okay.
We had checked out if we junked it. They will give us 500, but I got to take it to them.
and then
Oh.
Kevin Walters offered 1,200.
There you go.
Somebody's looking for a ride ride bus.
Okay.
I would make that motion to accept that $1,200 bid.
Okay,
I'll
motion
second
by-
it.
Motion by Scott, second by Kathy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you,
Yeah, and thank you, because now I don't have to drive the bus to Spencer.
Vander Higgs. Yeah.
Good idea.
Okay. And so then moving on to set the date and time for the board work session and the school budget.
So this is another one of those where we may be able to couple this one with a meeting we have to do to make some decisions on some of this. I talked with Isfis today with Jen. I got to get her some choices. The thought was, and I had shown, let me see if I can get it up here just so you understand what I'm trying to accomplish here. Take me a second. the big file. Okay, so you should be able to see this one with ISPIS at the top and Piper Sandler. Is that what you guys see?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so what we've been working on, much like you saw with the Pebble and Save, we started looking at trying to do a 5-year projection on budget and using a product that we get from ISPIS to do that. And so what this allows me to do is to start putting in some assumptions such as enrollment. In this case, you can see that in FY20 we were 673.2, and certified last fall that goes into this year's money, we dropped that many kids. Okay, so that means we're on the budget guarantee and we need to go through what that means. But in this assumption, I'm taking it all the way out as it stays stable. I can take into account special ed deficit. I can increase our expenses. I can do what our one-time things are as far as reducing expenditures. And then basically at the end of it, when you start putting stuff in, then you can start looking at both your unspent balance or your budget authority, and then you can start looking at, hang on, the two that we worry the most about are our budget authority and our solvency ratio. Okay, so what I want to do is have Larry Siegel, that's who I'm trying to coordinate with, who is one of the gurus in the state, be able to come up and do a budget workshop with the board, so that we can go through how this projection model works, what the assumptions are that go into it, and then you can project what our budget might look like out 5 years. The problem that we have in school budgeting is if you do it 1 year at a time, you are going to get you're going to get clobbered if you drop, right? We got to look out 3 to 4 years to see when we start to see things get away from us, and we have to plan that 2 to 3 years before that happens, because you're going to have to do some things with spending. If enrollment goes up, life gets good. If it goes down, then you got to look at your spending, and you got to do it in a way in which you get to where you need to be before that thing drops off the curve at the back year. Because when you start losing your solvents or your cash, and you start losing budget authority, it goes really quickly once it starts to slide. So I did talk with Andrea Acola-Sabin today, because I would like to have the teachers there as well. You know, as many teachers want to come, where we can have, between Larry and I, walk through how this projection model works. And then that way I've got backup, any questions I know he can help me answer. But I did talk with Jane about also having maybe people from economic development, the city chamber, understand how school budgeting works, so that there's a better understanding what we do. Right now, I don't have any dates from Larry, but I'm trying to get it done sooner than later, like not more than 2 weeks from now, if possible. Because I think then maybe we can put one of that work session together with a special session to look at expenditures on the Pebble Save side. Does that make sense? But that way, everybody's on board with how everything works.
I like that idea.
Great.
Okay, so we won't take any action on it tonight, but I'll get back to you with some dates. And then we'll try to coordinate with some of the other stuff that's going on. We may try to lump some things together into a special meeting and then have a work session.
That sounds great, Darren.
Does that
Sounds
make
good.
sense?
Sounds
Yeah.
great.
Thank you.
That
Okay.
is all I have on the agenda.
All right, then. I think we're good for tonight. If there aren't any other questions, right? So is there a motion to adjourn, Scott?
There would be a motion to adjourn, Jane.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second it.
Second by Aaron. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I didn't hear who seconded.
Well, Aaron and Kathy said it at the same
Okay.
time, but Aaron showed up on the screen, so I'm gonna go
Aaron
with
can
him.
have it.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
Wait a
Meeting-
minute. Are we going to discuss in the exempt meeting? I thought we were discussing that
7
more.
a.m. tomorrow.
We're gonna
That's
go
gonna be
7,
tomorrow at 7
we're going
a.m.
7 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Perfect.
I guess I should ask, is everyone in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, meeting adjourned 6:57 is what's on my computer. Have a great evening.
See you guys.
Good, everyone.
Everybody,
Yeah.
Good night.
good night.